Chapter 12. The house is eerily quiet the following morning. No one quibbles over who gets the first shower, and Gwen doesn't ask if she can borrow any of my clothes for today's casual day. Everyone gets their own breakfast, and we eat in silence. What do you talk about on the morning your mom's headed to a mental hospital? Exactly. Nothing. There's really nothing to say. I struggle with what to tell Evelyn, and when. She'll find out eventually, sooner rather than later, I'm sure, being family and all. Plus, she's my best friend, and I know I ought to want to tell her. But that crushing embarrassment continues to plague me. There's just no way to feel good about your mom going to a facility. Oh, sure, Dad tries to make it sound nice by calling it a wellness center. But we all know the truth. I sneak a glance at Gwen, then Paul, and see that they all slept about as well as I did. They look awful, and I know I do too. My eyes are red-rimmed and puffy, my cheeks stained from the tears that coursed down them on and off throughout the night. The lack of sleep added dark circles to the mix, and I'm more than a little mortified by the thought of facing everyone at school. I think of all of us Roberts pulling up to the school together, looking like death warmed over, and find that my mouth actually curves into a small smile as I compare us to the vampire family from the Twilight series. For a moment, I simply enjoy the fact that I can still smile, before reality sets in and the smile disappears. Dad arrives in the kitchen, ready to take us to our respective schools. He looks awful, too. He places a mug on the coffee machine and puts a cup in the dispenser and presses the button. Moments later, he leans against the granite countertop, closes his eyes, and breathes in the aroma of the dark roast, as if it holds the key to his well-being. When he opens his eyes, though, they're anxious, and I can see that he's dreading what this day will bring. He glances at the clock. Time to go, guys. Do you want to go up and say goodbye to Mom? The three of us look at each other, a little startled. Somehow, the thought didn't seem to have occurred to any of us. I'm filled with dismay. What would I say? What will Mom do? I can't possibly imagine a more awkward situation. But I know that I have a duty, as the oldest, to lead the way. I straighten my shoulders, give a quick, slightly jerky nod of my head, and resolutely head up for the stairs. We only have a few minutes, a mercy for which I think I'll be eternally grateful. I slowly open the door and peer inside. The room stinks of human, unwashed seats, and uncirculated air. I wrinkle my nose, but I continue in. I can see the lump of Mom under the covers through the darkness. Her back turns towards me. She rolls over as I near the side of the bed, and I realize this is the first time I've actually seen her face in days. I suck in my breath at what I see. Her skin is stretched across her cheekbones, her eyes hollow and dark in her sunken face. She's skin and bones, and her eyes look lifeless, yet tortured. I bend down and give her an awkward hug, which she does not return. Bye, Mom. I hope you feel better, I mumble, not knowing what else to say. She doesn't respond, just squeezes her eyes shut. A tear slips down across the bridge of her nose. I swallow back my own tears. I am not going there again. Stepping backwards away from the bed, I run right into Gwen. I whip around and see her wide, frightened eyes before I flee from the room as if the hounds of hell were chasing my heels. Before I know it, I'm in the kitchen again, catching my breath and trying to overcome the panic that seized me. Dad walks into the kitchen, takes one look at my terrified face, and comes to give me a hug, then holds my shoulders and steps back so he can look intently into my eyes. It'll be okay, Kate. You'll get through this. We'll get through this. Together. One day at a time. Right now we need to leave for school. So, chin up. Grab your stuff, okay? He cuffs me on the chin and studies me for a moment, as if to make sure I'm not going to crumple before his eyes, and turns away to grab the keys and head outside. I don't say a word. I just take a deep breath through my nose and exhale through my mouth, like the school guidance counselor taught us in the 4th grade. I do it again, And a third time. Feeling slightly better, I grab my backpack and march out to the car without saying a word. I get into the front seat, buckle up, and sit perfectly still, looking straight ahead. I hear the others get into the car, but continue to stare through the windshield. It's as though I might crack if I move a single muscle. When we arrive at my school, I climb stiffly from the car, walk through the doors into my locker without seeing anyone or anything I pass. I vaguely hear someone calling my name, but it doesn't really register. I just keep walking until I finally make it to my locker and mechanically go about the business of emptying my backpack and pulling out the materials I'll need for first period. My mind is blank, and I imagine myself as a robot going through all the motions without feeling anything at all. Suddenly, someone grabs hold of my arm, but I don't look at who it is. I hear my name from far off. The hand on my arm tightens and gives me a shake, turning me around so I'm forced to look at its source. Evelyn, of course, is surrounded by fellow concerned friends and classmates. Kate, are you okay?" she asks anxiously, peering into my eyes. I give a curt nod of my head, shake my arm loose, and head to my classroom. The bell rings just as I sit down by my desk, and it's the best sound I've heard in my entire life. Class starts and our teacher demands the students' attention. A guaranteed reprieve from prying eyes and questions. I've managed to collect myself a bit by the end of class, and am prepared when Evelyn catches up with me on my way out of the room. Once again, she grabs my arm and gives it a shake. "Kate, what's going on?" she asks desperately. "Nothing. I'm fine," I lie, looking somewhere past her eyes. I know she'll never buy it if I look straight after her. It doesn't work. It doesn't work regardless. No, you're not. Something's wrong, and you need to tell me what it is. I lie again. I'm fine, really. I just need to go to class. I start walking, and Evelyn follows along, running into classmates in her effort to stay alongside me. "Kate, you've got to talk with me." "What is wrong? Is it something with the beads?" Realization hits. "Is it your mom?" I don't react, but Evelyn draws in a deep breath. "It's your mom." "Oh no, what happened, Kate?" she asks pleadingly. I know she just wants to help, but I can't deal with telling her. Not here. Not right now. So I lash out. "Look, Evelyn, I'm fine. I'm told you I'm fine. And I really am fine. I just don't want to talk to you right now. So leave me alone," I say in a hard, angry voice. "You got that? Just leave me alone." I stalk away, leaving Evelyn behind me, her mouth hanging wide open, a wounded look in her eyes. I know that I've hurt her, and that none of this is her fault, but I press down the twinge of guilt, wrap myself back up in my robot persona, and head to my next class. Lunch comes around, and everyone in the class is avoiding me, so I sit by myself and stare at the corn dog on my tray. I pick up my spork and swish the pears around on my plate. I try a bite, and then go back to swishing. I settle on my chocolate milk as the only nourishment I really need, not to mention the only thing I think I can keep in my stomach. Once the milk's gone, I proceed to stare at my tray until the lunch lady announces that it's time to return to class. Unfortunately, I'm intercepted on my way, and this time it's not so easily avoided. The guidance counselor is approaching me, concern mixed with pity in her eyes. "Caitlin, can you come talk in my office, please?" "I have a class, Mrs. Tuttle." "I understand that, dear. I've already told Mr. Forrester that you'll be a little late to class." I cast a longing glance down the hall towards my classroom and obediently turn into the office after Mrs. Tuttle. "Have a seat, dear," Mrs. Tuttle motions to the chairs sitting near her desk. "Caitlin, your cousin Evelyn came to see me. She's very worried about you and says that you're not acting normal. I called your father, dear, and he told me what's going on." I closed my eyes for several seconds, then opened them to look directly into the caring eyes of Miss Tuttle, who's perched on the edge of her desk. I say nothing, just continue to look at her, locked in my robot mind, silently daring her to call me dear just one more time. "Would you like to talk about it, Caitlin, dear?" she asks kindly. Had it not been for that deer, her compassion might have been enough to break through my veneer. I shake my head. No, thank you, I say simply. I pull my gaze from her and look instead at the crucifix hanging on the wall. Your father and I thought it would be a good day for you to leave school early and take the rest of the day off. I checked with your teachers, and you won't be missing too much. Unfortunately, your dad's still with your mom, helping her get settled, so he's not able to come pick you up. He suggested I call your Aunt Mary Ellen. She pauses, as if to gauge my reaction. I slide my gaze away from the crucifix for a moment, waiting to reassure her that I'm not cracking up like my mom. But I don't really feel that I can pull it off, so I look at the crucifix again. Random thoughts begin to enter my mind. Man, he was really skinny. What do those letters above his head mean again? I wonder if that crown of thorns still hurts after wearing it for so many hours, or if he's just gotten used to it. I wish I could reach up and pull it off the wall, to run my hands along the body on the cross, and maybe, just maybe, throw it at the window to see if either one will break. Next thing I know, Aunt Mary Ellen is kneeling beside me. She places an arm around my shoulders and pulls my head towards hers in an effort to give me comfort. I resist and instead look at her. Her eyes are red-rimmed and damp. She's obviously been crying. Great, this is just what I need. Another basket case to help the basket case. Good going, Mrs. Tuttle. Dad? Aunt Mary Ellen takes my arm and pulls me up out of the chair. I rise without resistance. She pulls me into an embrace, but I don't hug her back. I hear her thank Mrs. Tuttle and tell her that she'll take care of me as she puts an arm around my shoulders and gently ushers me from the room. She stops briefly at the secretary's desk to sign me out, and then we walk down the hall and out of the school. The sun is bright, and I have to squint to adjust my eyes. I realize I've forgotten my backpack, but Aunt Mary Ellen says that Dylan or Evelyn will get it for me. She walks me to her car, opens the passenger door, and carefully tucks me into the seat, even reaching across me to fasten the seatbelt. I don't pay any attention to where we're going, but realize at some point that we're not headed towards my house, or Aunt Mary Ellen's for that matter. I wondered dazedly what she's done with Maria, who hasn't started kindergarten yet, and is usually home with her mother. Before I know it, we come to a stop, and Aunt Mary Ellen parallel parks the car on a relatively quiet street. She gets out of the car and comes to my side to open the car door for me. I rise without her aid and look around curiously, realizing through a fog that we've come to St. Joan of Arc, the same church where we attended Mass on Sunday. Only 5 days ago we were here, and yet it seems like an eternity. I feel like an old woman, like I've aged in the short yet vast time since we were last at this church. Spotting a figure robed in black at the top of the church steps, Aunt Mary Ellen waves. She turns to give me a searching look as she says, "I hope you don't mind. I asked Joseph to join us." The news doesn't pierce my robot persona, but I can see that she's waiting for a response, so I nod my head. Aunt Mary Ellen continues awkwardly, "I didn't know the best place for us to go, but this seemed like it might be good. I know I always feel—" She pauses as if searching for what to say. "Closer to God. So, here we are." We climb to the stairs without speaking. Aunt Joseph hugs me wordlessly before opening the heavy door for us. Aunt Mary Ellen chooses a pew close to the altar and sits, waiting for us to join her. I genuflect out of habit and slide in, leaving enough room for Uncle Joseph on my right. I sit at the edge of the pew, feeling trapped, not at all sure that I want to be here. Do I want to be closer to a God that allows things like this to happen? Still, without speaking, Uncle Joseph lowers the kneeler bar, and Aunt Mary Ellen follows suit. He begins, "Lord, we pray today for Teresa, Kate's mom and our sister. Lord, please give her healing. We pray as well for Katie, for Paul and Gwen, and their father Mike. Please comfort them through this difficult time. Lord, Blessed Mother, Please be a mother to them, while Teresa cannot. Reaching into his pocket, he pulls out 2 rosaries, handing me one before making the sign of the cross and beginning the prayer. I hear the clacking of beads as Mary Ellen pulls out her own rosary from her purse. At first I resist. I remain in my seat, trying not to hear the words or think of the stories. I vaguely hear him state, "The agony in the garden." My resolve weakens, and I begin to let the rhythm of the words wash over me. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. I find my fingers moving along the beads in time with the prayer, though I know I'm not on the right one. The feel of the cool beads beneath my fingers is soothing, and I gather the crucifix into the palm of my hand and run my thumb over it, grateful that I'm now able to touch what I had longed to touch in the counselor's office, but with no desire now to throw it at the window. Uncle Joseph continues, the scourging at the pillar. I lower myself from my seat, and I kneel between my aunt and my uncle. My reverie continues. My eyes are closed, and I fall into calm, until suddenly I see a slash of red across the inside of my eyelids. I startle, and then I see it again. I open my eyes, and everything around me is just as it should be. But when I close them again, I see another slash of red, and then another, and I begin to recognize the scene, and understand that I am witnessing the mystery in my mind. The slashes of the red are whips, tearing into Christ's flesh. I hear a scream of agony, but I don't know whether it's coming from the man on his knees before me or from an onlooker in the crowd. I reach out my hand to stop the torture, only to find that my flesh is torn by the whip as well. I snatch it back, nursing it against my stomach as I continue to stand there watching, unwilling or unable to help. I don't know which one. Suddenly I can't stand amidst the scene any more. I open my eyes, and I gasp for breath, falling back against the pew. Behind me I look desperately around the church, needing the reassurance that it was all just in my head. Uncle Joseph abruptly halts his prayer and turns to me with concern written all over his face. The robot is gone, the bliss of nothingness removed, and I begin to sob in pure agony. Mary Ellen gathers me into her arms, rocking me gently back and forth, much as Dad did last night. I cry in a way I have never cried before. Deep, wrenching sobs that come from somewhere in the pit of my stomach and well up and out of me. I cry for Mom, for what she must be going through. I cry for myself and the pain I've experienced, losing her slowly over the past year. I cry for having to say goodbye to her empty eyes before we left the house, and for Gwen and Paul and Dad, who must go through this in their own ways as well. I cry for the things I said to Evelyn this morning, knowing that I hurt her when she was only trying to help. And I cry for our grandmother, who's been lost to me for over a year now, for the loss of her generous smile, her warm hugs, the stories of her past, her hope for the future, and her rock-solid faith. I thought I was nearly all cried out after last night, but I was wrong. Clearly, seeing Mom this morning has pushed me over the edge. The vision of Jesus being scourged toppled me right over that precipice, and I begin to wonder, why? Why would that have such an effect on me? Aunt Mary Ellen continues to rock back and forth, making shushing sounds as my sobs begin to abate. Finally, in need of an answer, I lift my head from her shoulder, which is now wet with my tears. I look at my aunt, and I understand that there's a reason why Dad wasn't available to pick me up early from school today. I need Aunt Mary Ellen right now. I need her experience as a mother, and her closeness to the woman that Mom used to be. Moreover, I need her faith, her understanding, and her hope. She looks down at me with misty eyes filled with love, and I find myself telling her about what I saw. Aunt Mary Ellen, I saw him. She looks at me, bewildered, but then her face clears, and she smiles a knowing smile. You did you? She asks, not questioning whether I really saw him. She seems to know, intuitively, that I did. She seems pleased, peaceful, even joyful to have heard my words. She looks towards Uncle Joseph, whose presence I had forgotten, then back at me, and she asks, "Would you like to tell us about it?" I was there, I say in awe. At the scourging, I saw them whipping him. It was awful. I whisper, "Just awful." I tried to stop them, but the whip hit my hand, and I was afraid. I looked at the back of my hand now, where the whip would have lashed across it, but there was no sign of injury, and I suddenly feel very silly. It must have all just been in my head. I must be losing it too. Maybe it runs in the family. Uncle Joseph places a warm hand on my shoulder, and I turn to look at him. His gaze is filled with warmth and reassurance as he intuitively responds to my concerns. "Kate, you've received a special gift from God. Cherish it. Don't question whether it was real. It was. He gives us these experiences sometimes. Not everyone is blessed with such a gift, and those who are may only receive one in their entire lives. But know this, Kate. God blessed you with this because He knows it's just what you need. And this, for the moment, is it." "But what does it mean? Why didn't I stop them?" "Kate, no one could have stopped Christ's death. It was part of God's plan for salvation. It had to happen, and God chose for it to happen in exactly the way that it did. He doesn't want you to stop it. He wants you to know that His Son died for you because He loves you." I nod my head obediently, trying to think through everything he said. I get it, sort of, but it still seems a little foggy, really. Feeling Mary Ellen's hand on mine, I turn to her. She looks intently into my face and gives my hand a gentle squeeze. "Kate, I know that you're suffering right now. Jesus suffered too, so He knows what you're going through." She stops suddenly and draws in a quick breath. Her eyes widen and she smiles, a smile of wonder and awe. "Kate, I think maybe—" She glances around the nave of the church, as if searching for an answer there before settling her gaze on the statue of Mary. "Maybe you were standing in for her place. In Mary's place. She watched her son suffer. The person she loved most in the whole world. She watched him suffer just as you're watching your mom suffer, Kate. Perhaps it was Mary that gave you that insight." She grabs my arms and gives me a gentle, excited shake. "Mary, the Blessed Mother, she wants you to know that she understands what you're going through, perhaps in a way that no one else can. She wants to be a mother to you right now when you need one most." Aunt Mary Ellen grabs me up in a hug and actually begins to laugh. It seems like the most ridiculous thing in the world that she's laughing at this most horrible point in our lives. But I begin to laugh too. Still laughing, she stands up, pulling me up with her. It gives me a gentle push to indicate that I should leave the pew. Then she grabs my hand and pulls me towards the statue of Mary, where she falls to her knees and tugs me down beside her. Still an edge of laughter to her voice, she looks up at the statue and says, "Blessed Mother, we love you. We know that you are our mother too, and that we are never motherless. Thank you, Heavenly Mother. Thank you for the comfort that you have given Kate. Please continue to be with her through this difficult time. Be a mother to her when her earthly mother can't. Give her your wisdom, strength, and guidance, and be a mother to Teresa too. Help her to return to herself, to the person that she used to be, the one our Lord made her to be." She reaches out her hand and touches the feet of the statue, bowing her head. "Thank you for being mother to us all." Still smiling, Aunt Mary Ellen turns to me and squeezes the hand she still holds. "Would you like to say anything?" I shake my head mutely, not knowing what to say, for I turn up to gaze at the statue and reach my right hand up to rest on her feet. I close my eyes and feel her comfort, almost as if she's placed a protective hand around my shoulders. I revel in the moment, saying nothing, thinking nothing, just enjoying the presence of this mother that I didn't even know I had. Finally, I open my eyes, and I look at Aunt Mary Ellen. She's clearly been watching me, enjoying being a witness to this moment, the moment I've come to recognize the Virgin Mary as my mother. Aunt Mary Ellen smiles, letting go of the hand that I'd forgotten she held, and takes up her rosary beads. She turns to Uncle Joseph, who's now sitting in the pew. "All right," she says brightly. "Where were we?" He joins us where we kneel before the statue and resumes the rosary prayer where we had left it off. I blink, unable to transition so quickly, and my mind still reeling from this new revelation. After a few Hail Marys, however, I'm able to focus. But it's different now. My focus on the mysteries is more complete, and I consider each one from the Blessed Mother's point of view, comparing her suffering to my own, and knowing that she can definitely relate to what I'm going through. When we're done, I'm shocked by how very calm I feel. But this time I'm not numb like I was when I felt like a robot going mechanically through my day. I'm very aware of my surroundings and able to think about what's going on with Mom. But I don't feel totally freaked out over it. I'm very aware of my surroundings and able to think about what's going on with Mom. But I don't feel totally freaked out over it anymore. Somehow, I know we'll get through it. I think back over the past week and realize that this is the 4th rosary I've prayed in 8 days, which is very likely more rosaries than I prayed in my entire life up to this point. When I think about it, I also realize that every time I've prayed the rosary, whether with Evelyn or Aunt Mary Ellen, I feel better afterwards. Every time I felt hope. I savor that feeling, wanting to remember it, and how I found it in this rosary prayer that I always thought was, well, stupid. I feel guilty for saying it now, but the truth is I thought it was useless to spend 20 minutes praying, saying the same words over and over again, as if they were going to bring about some great spiritual revelation, or that some spiritual request might be granted. Now I know how wrong I was. This prayer is powerful. It does bring about spiritual revelation, like the ones I had today. Mary is my mother in heaven. And as for favors, well, that first time Roger Billings did call almost immediately after we prayed for news of another bead. And every time I've prayed, I've felt better afterwards. So maybe when I'm praying, I'm growing closer to God, and that gives me calm and peace as a result. The thoughts crowd my brain, and I really don't know what to make of it all. It's a relief when Aunt Mary Ellen stands, indicating that she's ready to go whenever Uncle Joseph and I are. I follow her lead, and Uncle Joseph does as well a moment later. "Where to now?" she asks, once we're out of the narthex of the church. "Well, I didn't eat much lunch." I look up at her hopefully. "Sure, we can grab a bite to eat." She looks questioningly at Uncle Joseph, who quips, "I'm in. How about the food emporium?" I was hoping for a burger, but I nod my head anyway, not wanting to seem rude. We leave the church in a warm silence, each presumably lost in our own thoughts.